Hamilton, Colorado now.
Well, now to a family's nightmare in California that is gripping the nation. 18-year-old Nicole Katsouras died in a horrific car accident back on Halloween 2006. So why are cyber stalkers now sending pictures of the awful accident to Nikki's family? Here's what happened. Nikki was driving her father's Porsche at about 100 miles an hour when she clipped another car and lost control. She slammed into a concrete toll booth and she was killed instantly. Following standard procedure, California Highway Patrol officers investigating the crash took photos of the scene. But some of those photos, many far too graphic for us to show here, were emailed outside of the department. They then spread around the internet. Unbelievably, some people began sending anonymous emails to Nicole's grieving parents, including pictures of their daughter's mangled body. Poor Nikki was decapitated, and some freaks out there on the internet think this is appropriate to send to her parents who are still dealing with their grief. How can this happen? Well, joining us now is Michael Furtick. He is from ReputationDefender.com, and that's a company that helps people remove items like this from the internet. He's been working with the family. Michael, thanks for being here with us by phone.
Thanks for having me.
This is insane. I mean, that anybody would take pleasure not only in viewing those pictures, but in forcing them on the family. How exactly are they sending them to the family, and in a way that the family doesn't recognize what's coming in?
So as I understand it, the father received an email, his name is Christos, with a subject line that suggested that it was about real estate, and he's a real estate person. And so he opened the email, and there were photos in the email and a comment that said to him either by that email or in a text message, "Daddy, Daddy, I'm alive."
Sick. You know, if you read about this, 2020 did an incredible report on this on Friday night, which is online if you guys want to check it out. But they say people who are blogging about this, about these pictures, these are only the ones that we can show you. We would never show you the others, which are far too graphic and disturbing. But they're blogging about this, taking shots at Nikki. People who didn't even know her, saying she was a spoiled little brat, she's not so pretty anymore, and on and on, Michael.
She got what she deserved.
How do you get this? How do you get this off of the internet?
Well, we've had them remove these photos from more than 1,600 websites so far, but the problem is that they spread like a virus or a cancer, so every time we get them down to a small number of websites, they can proliferate again. We've been working on it for 13 months with some good success, but every time the family does some media or every time we get them down to a small number, they can spread around. It's very important to try to nip this in the bud as fast as possible if anything like this ever happens to you. In this case, these are the worst photographs I have ever seen in my life.
Michael, you've had people refuse to take down the photos. I got to go, but just tell us quickly, what's their rationale?
I don't think that they typically have a rationale. They typically say something like, you can't force me to take it down. I mean, it's not much more thoughtful than that when they refuse. Michael
Furtick, good for you for fighting this nonsense, and we want to stay in touch with you on this story as you combat these evil forces who are putting this stuff out there. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Well, more on this story now in Kelly's court, and joining us is defense attorney David Wall, and attorney Trish DeAngelis joins us as well to talk about the family's lawsuit against the cops, because the cops, keep in mind, are the ones who first sent this stuff out. They got the pictures, that was okay, but sending them out onto the internet, not okay, and now the family is suing the California Highway Patrol. Good morning.
Good morning, Megan.
Trish, let me start with you. Does the family have a lawsuit against the cops? They have not yet apologized. They admit they did it. They admit it was wrong, but they haven't apologized, and they are not willing to pay up to the family. Should the family sue, and should the family recover?
Absolutely. First of all, Megan, just to give the viewers some background here, as a district attorney, I will tell you that I've dealt with many cases of a vehicular homicide nature where the parents of a child or the family members of a victim will come in, and I will tell you that I and the police will not offer those up to the family even. If the family specifically asks to see the pictures, then that's one thing. But it needs to be a family choice or a personal choice. And to have those pictures thrust on these people, it's just inexplicable. It's sick. Exactly what you said, Megan. But I'll tell you, the family absolutely has a lawsuit against California Highway Patrol, and I'm telling you, they know it. Because the police are not supposed to disseminate any kind of evidence whatsoever. It's negligence on their part, and it violated internal policy.
Michael, can they sue the police? I'm sorry, David, can they sue the police for negligence? Are there liability or immunity problems in them doing that? Is that going to be a viable lawsuit?
Well, it's a viable lawsuit, Megan. The one issue they may have is it foreseeable that when this was released that these internet terrorists would use these photos as weapons on the internet against the family and terrorize the family the way they did. I mean, it was just horrific the way this happened. I read this article and I can't believe there are these type of deranged people out there. But then again, I do warn my kids about this every day, so I shouldn't be too surprised. Yes, there's going to be a lawsuit. Yes, there's going to be a settlement. But the only issue for the jury would be the foreseeability of once the photo is released, could they foresee this turning into such a nightmare as it has? So other than that, I think it's a good lawsuit.
That's a legitimate question, Trish, because it's not like the pictures just got out there and they're on the internet and the family just needs to avoid them. Some sickos out there, as we talked about in the last segment, are sending them to the family, and when the family tries to avoid it, they try to cyber stalk them by getting them to open them under the ruse of saying, oh, it's a beautiful memorial to Nikki. Can the family sue those bloggers, those anonymous? How can they get at those anonymous people who are torturing them?
Well, Megan, we have ways in law enforcement of doing that. You can subpoena records, request assistance from the FBI or the state police. But if they can figure out who specifically sent those, then they certainly have a lawsuit for intentional infliction of emotional distress by that person. But I would say even more so, you know, it might not be successful, Megan, but I would go after the people who host these websites. They need to be responsible like Fox News is responsible. You didn't air those photos, Megan, because they're sick. And, you know, these people who have these websites need to have some responsibility. And if there's some lawsuits brought, Megan, then maybe at least their attorneys will advise them to use some caution in the future.
Well, what about it, David? Because it's very hard to sue an internet blogger for intentional infliction of emotional distress because they are protected by the First Amendment. When they've got First Amendment rights, it's hard to bring that claim. Is there any claim that the parents can successfully pursue against these bloggers?
Megan, I think when they're just passing them around the internet, as many bloggers do, they are protected by the First Amendment. But what I said before, when they use them to directly target the family, then that is actionable. That is actionable for intentional infliction of emotional distress. And guess what? If these are kids, these are teens, who's going to be on the hook for these lawsuits? The parents of these kids and teens. So they'd be well served to police what their kids are doing, because I suspect most of these kids that are doing this, or the people that are doing this, are young people that perhaps still live at home, and that means homeowners policies on the hook. Parents could go broke over it. So it's real important for parents to check out if any of their kids are doing this.
It is really a disgusting corruption of the First Amendment, but we see it all the time in this country, and that's sadly what the First Amendment protects. You know, all speech, however much you may hate it. David Wohl, Trish DeAngelis, thanks so much for being here with us. One final word for our viewers. The cops were clearly negligent in letting these pictures out, and they should take responsibility for it. As for a lawsuit against the bloggers, the parents, in my view, do have a claim. It's going to be a tough one to actually make, but they should file it now and try to get this case the attention it deserves and get this stuff off of the internet.
And the anonymity of technology, too.
That's the way it goes.
They are men of God, so then why?